Welcome to Little Wild Experiences. Today, we will unravel the complexities of property investment and financing strategies to empower you on your journey to financial freedom. I'm your host, Zhara, and in today's episode, we have a special guest joining us, David Dennison, a lending expert from Loan Depot, to delve into the world of real estate loans and investment wisdom. So investing in real estate can be both exhilarating and daunting, from navigating the labyrinth of loan options to understanding market trends and risk management. Every step requires careful consideration and expertise. But fear not, as today we are here to demystify the process and equip you with the knowledge you need to make informed decisions. So, our guest today, David Dennison, knows that the mortgage engineer has a unique background with a Bachelor of Science in Materials Design and Engineering. He spent 28 successful years in manufacturing before pivoting to a career that could directly impact people's lives. In 2021, Dave became a licensed mortgage loan originator and now works at Loan Depot. His engineering mindset brings precision and a problem-solving approach to helping individuals achieving their dreams of home ownership. So let's give it a shout out to David. Hey, thank you. Finally.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so tell us a little bit more about you, although I gave you an introduction, so.
Hey, you did a wonderful job. Yeah, as you said, I spent 28 years in manufacturing, showing up in a factory every day, solving problems, making steel. Excuse me. And 2 years ago, I decided I wanted more freedom, more time with my family, and to do something that I have a passion for, which is real estate investing and helping people get into real estate.
That's awesome. Before I move on with this, I just want to highlight your background, though. Is that a real background, or?
Oh yeah, I'm at my Airbnb on the back patio. There's a golf course right behind me.
That's awesome. I'm jealous now. Listen, I want to ask you. I mean, as a real estate, agent and consultant, I'm so into investing in real estate, but I know a lot of people find that very difficult because many think that in order for you to invest in real estate, you need to have a lot of money, just plain and simple. But nowadays, that's not necessary. So let's just start right there. Let's just talk about the importance of investing in real estate. Why do you think that's important?
Because first of all, if you've ever tried to save money, you have a normal job, you go to work every day and you get a paycheck, and there's lots of expenses in life, and it's very difficult and it takes a long time to save money. When you invest in real estate, immediately from the day you own it, real estate appreciates on average, 3 to 4% a year. And so without doing anything, your investment increases in value. And then when you invest in real estate and you have tenants, you're not spending any money out of pocket on a monthly basis. Your tenants are buying the real estate for you. That's appreciating. And there's a rule of 72, which when you use the rule of 72, you take 72 and divide it by your average annual rate of return. And that's how many years it takes for your investment to double. So on average, real estate doubles every 20 years. So
if you buy a house today for, let's say, $300,000, I mean, this is the thing, like, now that you mentioned that, a lot of people, or I think myself sometimes, the market can be very volatile, right? And then goes up and down constantly. Why would you say to someone that's afraid of investing because they think that the market can just go wild at a certain point? like we know what happened in 2007, and that's where we are in terms of applying for loans, right? What happened with the economy at the time. So why would you say to someone who is afraid to invest in real estate because of that?
Okay. Well, I would like to give a personal example, one that so the lending standards were different before 2008 when we had the financial crash. My brother and I invested $5,000 apiece back in 2005. And we bought a investment property in Troy, Ohio, where my brother lives. And we bought a property for, I believe it was $170,000. My memory's fuzzy, but plus or minus a couple $1,000s. We both invested $5,000. And after we bought it, our rent was paid. I mean, we've had a tenant for, it's going on 20 years now, or almost 20 years, 19 years. And, but right after 2008, there was a crash. The real estate market crashed, everything crashed. But we had a tenant that was paying our mortgage every month. And after that crash, the market recovered like it's always does. When you look at the trend, if you just zoom out and look at the real estate market over the long haul, it's just like the stock market. Yeah, there's peaks and valleys, but the overall trend's up. So we invested $5,000 a piece. We today owe about $70,000 on that mortgage.
Oh wow!
And that property's worth $325,000.
Double what you spent. Yeah.
Right. So you look at what's 325 minus 70, whatever that is, 250,000, plus all the positive cash flow that we have in the bank. We have made about $125,000 a piece off of a $5,000 investment, where we had to do absolutely nothing other than maybe repair something here or there,
right,
and collect rent. And
I think that's one. That's a great example, because I think a lot of people think of investing and then they think it's a risk. But if you look at the big picture and you go back in time, there has been up and downs. I know that, but if you go back in time and then look at how, those graphs, and then you'll see those highs right there. If we go back in 2007 until now, maybe the properties that whatever value of a property was in 2007, it's not even close to what it is right now. Or let's talk about the 90s or the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So definitely that's a great investment, and I will take that 1,000 times over 401k.
100%.
So now, what are the types of loans? Because a lot of people, okay, let's go back to what I was saying, that a lot of people don't have, they say, oh, wow, I want to buy a house, but I don't have the money to buy a house. How am I going to invest in a house? And then also the fact that there is a lot of requirements with loans, because again, we go back to what happened between 2007, 2008. And the bank started giving all these loans to anybody. And now we have these specific requirements. And they say, well, I need to provide a certain amount of income, or they look at my score, and then that just becomes a hassle. And I don't want to go through that. So if they want to invest, what should they do?
Well, I mean, you can take young people like first-time home buyers, and both conventional and FHA loans will allow you to buy up to a 4-unit property, as long as you're living in one of the units to get started. And you can rent, if it's a 4-unit, you can rent the other 3 units out. And go ahead.
And you can do that with FHA.
Yes, absolutely.
You see, I'm learning things with you. Maybe in real estate, I know that. So you can do that with FHA, and you can do that with any type of loan, or there are specific loans?
Now, I don't know if it's both Fannie or Freddie, but I know that at least one of them changed their guidelines to allow a 5% down payment if it's owner-occupied investment property. So you can buy up to a 4-unit property with 5% down. and rent the other 3 units and have enough. And most of the time, if you're renting 3 units, you have enough income coming in to where you're living for free. You're not having to, you got enough to cover your mortgage with the 3 units that are being rented. And often even more than that, enough to have positive cash flow after you pay the mortgage.
People need to know more about this.
Yes.
Because if I had known this a while ago, I would have done it in a bit.
Absolutely.
So tell me the types of loans. Let's just go over the types of loans, because that's the problem. When people apply for, they want to buy a property and they want to apply for a loan, there are different types of loans, and they all have different requirements, and it depends on, their requirements, how they're going to feed to someone individually.
Okay, so you can, if you're going to use an FHA loan, it has to be owner occupied if it's going to be an investment property. There's no option to buy an investment property that's not owner occupied with FHA. So you have to do the where you live in one of the units and rent the others out. A conventional loan, if it's going to be a pure investment property, it requires a little higher down payment, and 15% if it's conventional single family, and then 2 to 4 unit, it's 25% down payment. Then there's also, so a lot of people run into that are self-employed. They have businesses, they have a lot of expenses, and they write a lot of stuff off on their taxes. So it's hard for self-employed people to qualify if, through the normal conventional or qualified mortgage process. There's a whole nother group of loans called non-QM, where you can qualify with bank statements. You can qualify if you're a foreign national. You can qualify just on the income that a investment property generates. So like, for example, if you're going to qualify with bank statements, that takes over the income portion. But after that, everything's kind of similar to a conventional loan. A slight increase in interest rate because you're going a non-traditional method of qualifying. But what a lot of investors do that acquire a bunch of properties is they will form an LLC, and then they will use what's called a DSCR, which stands for debt service. I'm drawing a blank. what a debt service? I'm gonna have to
listen. I don't remember.
I have to look
I'm
up.
the worst to remember acronyms.
And I've known it 100 times. But anyway, but that if you meet the ratio where the income that you bring in, or the amount of the rent exceeds the mortgage payment, that's a DSCR ratio of 1 or greater, then you can purchase that property without going into your income at all. So you don't have to supply tax returns. You don't have to supply W-2s. It's very, very simple. And all it takes is
you do need a credit score requirement for that.
Yeah, a credit score. But if I said credit score, I didn't mean that. But you don't need to supply any income information.
And you mentioned that like a foreign national could also use that to apply for a loan as well, to invest here in the U.S.
That's correct.
As long as they have a bank account and then being deposited money into that bank account.
Correct.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. And and there's lots of people investing in the U.S. And I think Tennessee, I know Ohio. So I'm licensed in Tennessee and Ohio. My company, Loan Depot, is licensed in all 50 states. And there's so many people that are investing in Ohio, and Tennessee's got a big outside investment influence where people are trying to buy real estate that don't live in the state. Do you see that a lot? Where
I,
people,
yeah, I mean, especially, when if you think about all these states like the Northeast Coast and the the West Coast, those states can, like, for example, New York, California, the economy has gotten pretty high. And a lot of people have moved to the South just because it's way cheaper for them to just buy a house here. I was one of them. And it's just, I think the fact that a lot of people have found that kind of like, gold mine here, like, oh, wow, now I can buy a lot of properties there because it's cheaper. I don't think this is going to be the case in the next few years. So maybe this is the time, if you want to invest in real estate in this, this southern states, might be the best thing to do. And so we have that loan. There's the FHA loan. And what are the other types of loans that people should be aware of?
Okay. Well, as far as just the other types of loans that are available, I mean, you got USDA, VA, FHA. Those are all government-backed loans. Fannie and Freddie, which are your conventional. And then your bank statements, DSCR. And I think with those, that covers about everything that I can think of. Now, there's different variations of the non-QM, but go ahead.
Well, what about the VA loans? Do we know a little bit about those? Because I know that's a loan that is offered to, the military or people who have served in the military. Are these people have better options or more opportunities to invest in different properties? Use VA loan.
Well, VA loans and USDA loans both allow people to buy primary residence without any down payment. So if you qualify for those, now USDA loans, you only qualify if it's a rural area. So you get a hold of your lender and they'll plug it into USDA has a map, you plug the address in. And if you look at the land mass of the United States, probably 95% of the land mass qualifies for USDA. It just can't be in a high population area. So, but you talk to any lender or any lender that does USDA, you can call me. And so if it qualifies, you can get a loan with 0% down. And here's another thing that people don't know about USDA. So we'll use an example of a $100,000 house. So you get into that for 0% down. Let's say after your appraisal comes back, if it appraises more than the purchase price, then you can finance some of your closing costs. So if it appraises for $110,000, you could potentially cover $10,000 of your closing costs roll back into the loan.
So it all depends. That's with USDA loan.
Yeah. Yes. And you don't know that ahead of time. You're not going to know that. So you have to qualify. You have to have the resources to qualify without. But once you get the appraisal back, you can keep some of your money in the bank if you choose to do so by rolling that into the loan.
Depending on how much was the value after the appraisal of that property.
Correct.
That's I didn't know that. I'm telling you, I'm learning. and
then VA has a funding fee. Okay, so.
Oh yeah, can you explain that funding fee? Because I have a lot of clients that have asked me about that funding.
So what the funding fee is so VA loans do not have mortgage insurance, but they have a funding fee that is paid up front that acts as mortgage insurance. You just don't pay it monthly. It's paid lump sum up front. Now, if you were in the military and you have any service-related disability, so there's lots of people that get out of the military that have some sort of disability related to their service. If that's the case, not only do you get zero down payment, but the funding fees waived, which is a huge, we got to thank everyone for their service to this country, and nobody wants to have any sort of disability related to their service. But if you do, that's a benefit that the United States government provides to our veterans.
And that's a funding fee that they are required to pay monthly. It will be applied to the monthly mortgage, but
Now, the funding fee is it's paid up front. It's rolled into the loan, but it's required.
it's required, and then if they have some sort of disability, then that can be waived.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is mortgage insurance? A lot of people don't understand that they do pay for mortgage insurance, but with VA loan, well, that doesn't apply. But with the rest of the loans, you do have to.
Okay, so let's start with let's start with a conventional loan. So on a conventional loan, and everything's based on risk. So if you put 20% down or more when you purchase your house, and that's where people have this thought that you need 20% down to buy a house, your primary residence. That is not the case. Where that's coming from is you need 20% down to not, mortgage insurance is not required if you have 20% down, okay? And the whole thought behind that is when somebody invests 20% of their own money in a property, the likelihood of them defaulting on that loan goes way down. And there's equity built up if they would default, that the bank could sell the house and recoup their investment, cover the money they lent if they foreclosed on the house.
It's kind of like a security for the bank.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and then think about going backwards. So anything less than 20% that you put down, as the down payment gets lower and lower, the risk gets higher and higher. So the mortgage insurance covers some of the mortgage, or it protects the banks. It's an insurance policy against default, which takes some of the risk away from the lenders. Okay.
Right.
Now okay, go ahead.
No. I'm sorry, I interrupt you. Go ahead. Keep going.
So on an FHA loan, if you put down anything less than 10%, the mortgage insurance lasts the life of the loan. So that's why a lot of people you hear that get an FHA loan, that's like a loan to get you into the house, and eventually you're going to refinance when the interest rates come down to not only lower your monthly payment, but to drop your mortgage insurance. Okay, so let's just say, I like to use $100,000 because it's around
to the math.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you buy a house that's worth $100,000. Okay, and you put 3.5% down, so you're borrowing $96,500. Okay.
Right.
Now, FHA actually has something that's called upfront mortgage insurance. So not only do you pay monthly, but you pay 1.75% of the loan amount upfront. Okay, it's rolled into the loan. So now you own that property, and let's just say it's appreciating at 3% a year. Okay. So after 4 or 5 years, even if the interest rates don't come down, you could refinance the house. And when you refinance, you'll get an appraisal. And if that house appraises for more than 120,000, let's say, now you have 20% equity.
Correct.
Okay. So now when you refinance the house, you do not need mortgage insurance. Now you have a conventional loan with no mortgage insurance.
And that's because of the mortgage insurance requires a certain amount of equity.
Correct.
To waive that payment.
Right. Now, so on an FHA loan, if you put the 3.5% down, you're going to pay that mortgage insurance for the life of the loan. If you put 10% down on an FHA loan, I think I'll have to look. It's like 11 or 12 years. After 11 or 12 years, the mortgage insurance falls off.
Which is about, I mean, I'm just throwing a number right there, but probably like $100 less or 100 and something dollars less monthly.
Yeah. So the mortgage insurance on an FHA loan before, I forget what the exact date, at the beginning of 2023, they dropped it, but I believe it was 0.75% of the loan amount. So you take 0.75 times the loan amount and then divide that by 12. And I'm just going off memory because I used to have this calculator. I think it was like $70 per 100,000. If I had my calculator out, I would. So, and I think, you know what, I'm going to hit the number right now just so I got the calculator on my watch.
Hey, feel free to use a calculator. I use it. I don't care.
Oh, yeah. If I can ever get this thing up.
I'm not a math teacher, so math is not my strength. I mean, I use it, but.
All right, so $100,000. What it is right now is 0.0055 or 0.55% divided by 12. Okay, so roughly $45 per 100,000 you borrow is what the mortgage insurance is today. And I think that's I'm gonna double check my numbers one more time.
So that
right at 45, 46.
Yeah, that was what I had to pay in total for the mortgage insurance.
Right. And then that used to be higher. I think it used to be around $70 per 100,000. So when they dropped the mortgage insurance percentage back at the beginning of 2023, what I saw when I was comparing loans, because whenever I do a loan for somebody, I compare conventional to FHA because I always want my clients to get the lowest possible down payment. It made a lot of times FHA more favorable than a conventional loan for a lot of borrowers. So as realtors, I'm sure you've probably heard this where people, when they hear FHA, a lot of realtors get all freaked out and because they prefer the conventional loans. But I'm telling you right now, and there are so many cases where an FHA benefits the borrower. And I always do what's in the best interest of my clients. And a lot of times that's an FHA mortgage. That does not mean they're in a bad financial position. That just means when I compare the two, people typically choose what's going to give them the lower monthly payment.
Right.
I mean, if you're buying the same property, you want the lowest monthly payment.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, I get it. And that's so that's only about loans. I'm going to repeat myself because we are where we are because of that chaotic financial situation we went through between 2007 and 2008. And that was because of, how do you call that? Correct me if I'm wrong. Back security mortgages, right?
Oh, yeah, mortgage-backed securities.
Mortgage-backed, yeah, I'm sorry. So that's what caused that recession. And then we're in a place where we have all these requirements, and that's the reason why now it's so complex. It seems really complex because a lot of people, wow, applying for a loan is so complex, it's so difficult, and they ask me for so many things, and then when we go through underwriting, they're just gonna drive me crazy asking me for all these documents. But being in real estate, I have learned that it's not that hard, and it doesn't have to be that difficult if you have all your finances in order, right? So I have a lot of clients that come to me and then they said like, well, I want to apply for a loan, and then I send them to the lender and they have no idea what their income is. They have no clue. So they start asking, so the lender's going to start asking, so what do you do? Do you work for for somebody? Do you have an employer, or you're self-employed? And then they have no clue what they do. Okay, so I get W-2, and then the lender needs to ask for the last 2 years of income.
Mhm.
But for some reason, people have no idea where the pay stubs are, what they are,
Mhm.
what is a 1040, what is a Schedule C.
Yeah. So if just to go over income real quick. So let's just say you are a W-2 employee, you get paid by the hour, you work 40 hours a week, and you work some overtime. All right. The reason we ask for a 2-year history, you don't need a 2-year consecutive history to be able to be qualified with your base wage. So let's say you make $20 an hour and you work 40 hours a week. We're going to qualify you on that. But if you get bonuses and you get overtime, before we can utilize that, there has to be a 2-year history of that. And we're very conservative. The regulations are very conservative. And the reason we want to make sure we have to make sure we have an obligation to make sure that you have the ability to repay that loan. So if you got very little overtime for a year and a half, and then all of a sudden the company you work for got a big contract and you got lots of overtime, well, you don't have a 2-year history. So we're kind of worried that is that overtime going to continue? You've only got 6, for example, you might only have 6 months of receiving that. So we are going to look at it. We're going to average that over 2 years. So we're going to average that with, the overtime you made when things weren't quite as a windfall, just to be conservative, to make sure that everyone's protected. You're going to be able to pay that loan back. And people get freaked out about that, but that's protecting the whole real estate market from what happened in 2008, because they did not make sure that people could repay the loan. And we saw what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad. And even investors were, lost a lot of money. But the thing is, so as long as you're organized with your finances, as long as you have a stable job, and you've been working for a certain company for the last 2 years, or because this is another question I get a lot about clients, like, oh, but if I'm self-employed, it's going to be difficult. Not necessarily if you've been, if you have had that job, if you've been self-employed for the last 2 years or longer, as long as they know that you've been consistent with the income and it's going to the account. Now, this is another thing. So we had the income, right? And then there is also the DTI. Because a lot of people, I'm not exaggerating. I have had clients in the past that make good money, decent money, and they only have about $1,000 in their bank account. So
that's about 70% of people I talk to. Yes.
It has happened. So, and just recently, not long ago, just recently, I'm telling you, going through a situation with a client that is not understanding the major effect that the monthly payments on those vehicles that this client owns is making on that income. So, and I think it's good for people to understand what is a debt to income ratio, because you can make $1 million and you can have the most stable job. But if you own a lot of stuff that deducts that from your income, then that's when the problem comes, and people go and apply for loans and then they don't qualify, even though they do have a stable job and they do make a decent income.
Right. So the first thing is, so the foundation on of qualifying, the denominator and the debt to income ratio. So the bottom number and the fraction is your income. Okay. So the easiest income to determine is somebody's W-2 and their salary. They get a salary, get the same amount every month. That's easy peasy. Hourly income's pretty straightforward. Then you get into, and I'm just going into, at the end of whether you're W-2 or self-employed, what we're trying to get to is a gross monthly income. That's what we're trying to peel back all the layers. So being self-employed is a little more difficult because when you are a W-2 employee, your employer's taking out taxes, throughout the year. When you're self-employed, there's write-offs. A lot of the stuff that you're bringing in a lot of revenue, but you have a cost of all those, whatever your business is. So at the end of all this, you have an amount that you're taxed on. Okay. And there's a few other things that we can add back in, but so we're peeling back all the layers like an onion and to get to what your income is. Then once we determine that goes into that equation. So let's just talk about debt to income, and we can talk more about self-employed income. Once we determine what your income is, that goes in the bottom of that fraction. So if you make $5,000 a month, you can pretty much, if we're going to use 45, I'm going to say 45%. Now the better your credit score is, the better your history of paying back debt is. Sometimes in some loans, they'll let you go as high as 57% of your monthly income of total debt that you're allowed to have. Okay. But let's take 45% of 5,000. I should have said 10,000. That's what I'm going to say. 10,000. If you make $10,000 a month, that's $120,000 a year. I wish everyone made that, but
yeah,
I'm doing it for simple math. 45% of that is $4,500. So that is the total amount of debt that you're allowed to have. Okay. So what people have, and you look, it is not uncommon for me to see people like that, where a husband and wife may both drive cars with a $1,000 a month car payment. If you have $1,000 a month car payment, you can subtract that. So you have that $4,500 and you have $2,000 a month car payments. That $4,500 of total debt's now $2,500. Now you have some credit cards that add up to $500 a month of payments. And then you have student loans. So that person making $10,000 a month may only be able to qualify for a mortgage of $1,500 a month. And you take someone that makes $4,000 a month, if they manage their finances well, they don't live above their means, and they buy their cars with cash, and they could have the same buying power on a house. So if you love to have whatever the latest, greatest thing is, and you're financing everything, it makes it a lot tougher to purchase real estate.
I think we should have, we should meet again to talk about all this financial, I would say, guidance that people need. Because I found, I think that's the problem with, especially the US, I would say that, and I was reading an article last time that it is majority of the population in the US do not have a secure retirement plan and do not have more than $1,000 in their bank accounts and do not have any sort of investment plan whatsoever to think about their later years, right? When you're thinking about retirement. So if you don't have your finances in order, then that's when the issue comes when applying for loans. I don't think it's the complexity of the loans. It's true. I think now they're just being very picky, I would say, and annoying when it comes about asking for all these documents. But I think if you have all this documentation in order and you know your finances and you know what you spent and you know what you get, I think you should be able to get a house in no time, and you can even close in less than 30 days.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But these people just think that, I just mentioned, like, this client, I think the income was about $80,000 a year. And this couple had two payment cars, one for $700 and one for $800 a month. That, to me, that's insane. I don't even have a car that I pay $800 a month. That's a lot of money for the average income.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah.
so so there's two things you brought up that it's important. I feel it's important to talk about before we, I don't know how long we're going, but before I want to make sure, because you brought something up that I don't hear anyone talking about, but I think about it all the time. Okay. So there is a percentage of the population, and I don't know what the number is, but I think it's much higher than people want to believe. I'm going to throw 30 to 40% of the population, people that are working, they have good jobs, they go to work every day, but they spend everything they make. They're living to paycheck to paycheck.
Nope.
They could get a $2,000 a month raise and they're still living paycheck to paycheck because
it will be irrelevant.
Right, exactly. So I always hear people say, like, preaching to these people, hey, you got to save your money, you got to do this and that. Well, guess what? If you've worked for 5 years and your income's increased and your spending's increased right along with your income, you're probably going to be like that for the rest of your life. And it's easy to do because every TV channel you turn on social media, what's happening everywhere? People are trying to sell you stuff. Everywhere you go, Amazon can have it there for you the next night. Okay. So everybody's victim of this to some degree. So I'm going to tell you, people that cannot save, those are the people that should find any way possible to buy real estate, because those people are right now renting. So here's what real estate does I tell people, and I say, hey, I can get you down payment assistance. I can help you get into a house, because I see so many people that live paycheck to paycheck, but have high credit scores because they always find a way to pay their bills. If they have bills, they'll work overtime, they'll work a second job, they'll DoorDash, they'll do whatever it is to pay their bills. Well, if you're going to fight every day to pay your bills, have a mortgage instead of rent. When you rent, if you rent for 10 years and you move out, everything that you spent on rent, you don't have anything. Okay. So if you buy a house and you're living paycheck to paycheck, you have no money in savings, it's a forced savings account, because every monthly payment you make, so a little bit gets paid on your principal, so your principal balance goes down. And on average, that 3%, your property appreciates. Yeah. So you live somewhere for 10 years, renting, at the end you have zero. If you live somewhere for 10 years and it's appreciating in value, you don't have any money in your bank, but when you go to sell and the appreciation and all that, you may have $100,000. You may have more than $100,000 in equity that you would have never been able to save because you would have spent it if you had it. And that is, and I'm telling you, first-time home buyers, it is so difficult for them because inflation affects everything. Closing costs, every part of a loan, you got to pay your property taxes. You got to pay a percentage of that up front. You got to pay a year's worth of homeowner's insurance. There's lender fees, there's title costs, and all that stuff gets inflated because the cost of everything goes up. Okay. So it's so difficult for a first-time home buyer to be able to cover a minimum down payment, all the closing costs, and any reserves you're required. I mean, it is so tough. So to me, that's where down payment assistance, anything you can do to get you into a house, because the one thing everyone has to do is pay for shelter. You're going to pay for it whether you rent or own. So you might as well do something that benefits you.
It doesn't matter if you have the opportunity, just get the house, no matter what circumstances are or what loan you're getting. But if you can get the house now, get it. Now, and that's what I'm going to ask you about this last thing so we can wrap up about interest rate. That's another reason why people hesitate a lot about interest rate. In my career, investing, I mean, I have been investing for longer than I have been in real estate, but based on my experience, interest rates to me are irrelevant. And sometimes it's really difficult to make clients understand that. And they just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for rates to come down, which is not the smartest thing to do. But I want someone that actually, you as, a mortgage loan originator might have a better explanation why interest rates are irrelevant, and people shouldn't care about that. I mean, not irrelevant 100%, but what I'm saying is that it shouldn't be a reason why you're not getting the house.
Yeah. So here's something that's very unique about the real estate market we're in, okay? Because typically, when interest rates go up, home prices go down because there's a relationship between those two variables. So you take somebody that can buy. So I did this. I'm just going to use some numbers that I remember. So don't quote me; they're not exact. But to borrow $100,000 at a 3.5% interest rate, the payback on the principal and interest was like, and don't quote me, like $350. When the interest rate went to above 7%, to borrow that same $100,000, it was like $700 to borrow that same amount of money. Okay. So typically that has a drastic, it has a downward pressure on prices. Interest rates go up, home prices go down. But this market's been weird. It's been unique because there's such a low amount of inventory. So you have the supply and demand. When you think of supply and demand, forget about the interest rates. But when there is a demand for houses, everyone needs houses, but there's no supply, even when that demand starts to go down, what's happened with prices? When the interest rates went from 3% to 7%, has anyone seen home prices go down significantly? I mean, these home prices are still high. I mean, they're holding in there. Okay. So what's going to happen if home prices did not go down as interest rates went up? Because there's very few houses, and every good house that comes on the market, people are competing for it. What's going to happen when the interest rate drops from 7% down to 5%? When everybody has more buying power, and all these people that are waiting for interest rates to come down now go out and get pre-approved, and they're jumping into this market. Home prices are going to go up. So
that's a high demand. Then more people are able to buy a house, and then now we're going to raise the prices. Yeah.
Right. So what they always say in the stock market, you want to sell when on the good news, when everyone else is buying, that's when you want to be selling your stock, because you're going to sell when people are bidding up the prices of stocks. And then when all the news is doom and gloom and you can't buy stocks and they're super cheap, that's when people get into the stock market. The smart people, not me. I always get that wrong. But it's the same thing if you think about it with real estate. So there is less competition right now because interest rates are high. So if you can find a way to buy now, even though the rates are up, when the interest rates drop, to 5% or below 5%. And then all of a sudden, housing prices start to go up. Now, let's just say you buy a house with 7% interest, a $200,000 house at 7% interest. And then all of a sudden, these interest rates, the bottom falls out of these interest rates and it's down to 5 or 4.5%. And everybody wants to buy everything. That $200,000 house could very easily be worth $230,000, $240,000, $250,000. Yeah. So when everybody's buying, you can refinance that house you already bought. You already bought it at $200,000.
But the value keeps going up.
It's going up, but when you refinance, you're only refinancing to $200,000.
Yeah.
And
hey, I'll thank you for that. So when you I want to make an emphasis on that because people they don't understand what refinancing is and how it works. So when you refinance, you're not refinancing on the updated value of the new value of the house. You're refinancing based on what value?
You're refinancing based on your principal, what you owe on the house.
On the
You're just right. I mean, there's a few dollars. I mean, you're going to have to pay your title fees again. But on a refinance, the money, in most cases, the money that you're using to pay your title costs, most lenders, I know my company, if you buy a house now, we're not charging you lender fees in 2 years or 3 years. We have a lifetime guarantee that if you buy a house right now, when it's time to refinance, we're not charging you again for lender fees. Okay. But so you're going to roll a little bit back into the loan. Nothing's going to come out of your pocket, but yeah, you're refinancing the principal amount, what you owe, and you're just lowering your monthly payment. I mean, it is
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard because just people think interest rate, but I'm telling you, the thing about interest rates, when they come down, you can what time on my camera?
I don't know, but I still see you though.
Yeah, I'm flipped. Okay. Yeah, so you can always take advantage of lower interest rates. So you buy now, the rates come down, you just refi. It's super
simple. Yeah. So now for someone who already owns a house, there is another opportunity for them to invest because there is something that calls HELOC. And I'm trying to encourage people a lot about HELOC and understand what HELOC means, which, okay, now it's my turn to compete on this acronym sense. That's home equity. Wait, don't tell me. Is home equity loan? No. Okay, you remind me.
Okay, hold on. Before you say that, it's debt service, DSCR's debt service coverage ratio. I drew a blank on the C, but HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit.
Line of credit. Yeah. Oh my God.
Okay. There's also something called a HE loan. And so where a lot of people historically would refinance their house, and when rates go down, you can refinance and do like a cash out refinance. But with a lot of people are sitting with a 3 or 4% interest rate, or some people even lower. Okay. So refinancing to get cash out isn't very attractive in a lot of cases because your principal balance you have right now, you don't want to, let's say you owe $200,000 on a $500,000 house. Well, you don't want that $200,000 that you're paying 2.5% interest on. You don't want to refinance that and pay 7.5% on something you're already paying 2% on. So that's where the home equity line of credit, or what I think is even better, is getting a second mortgage where you're taking out a fixed interest second mortgage where you keep the first mortgage at that low interest, and only the stuff that you're borrowing to get cash out has the higher interest rate. But if that's your primary residence, you can borrow. So in that example I just told you, you owe $200,000 on a $500,000 house. So you have 60% equity on that. You can borrow up to 80% of that. Okay. And some let you go even higher, but let's just use round numbers, 80%. So 80% of 500,000 is 400,000.
Mm-hmm.
You owe 200,000. So you can pull $200,000 out and you can use that money as down payment to acquire investment properties. And with like our DSCR product we have, which a DSCR requires in most cases like a 25% down payment. You have $200,000 that you pull out of your house, then you could buy $800,000 worth of real estate with that 200,000.
And now you could not really match a mortgage because you're putting a huge down payment on that.
Yeah, and you're going to invest. You're going to invest smart. You're going to buy properties that the income from the property is going to exceed your mortgage payment. So you're going to be able to pay your mortgage, your DSCR loan, and pay back your loan on your equity, your home equity line of credit or your second mortgage. Yeah, so you're going to invest and you're not going to be making those monthly payments because you're going to invest smart and you're going to buy stuff that has a return that's going to cover your cost. And now think about, we just talked about buying $800,000 worth of real estate. And if over the long haul, it's going to appreciate at 3% a year, plus or minus. I'm not guaranteeing what next year, but I'm just looking at historical averages.
Yeah.
So 3% of $800,000, you're racking it up every year just because you have that investment property. So,
and I just want to emphasize this, that a lot of people get really freaked out about loans. Like, I don't want to ask for more loans. Hey, loans are great. Loans are good if you're going to invest with that money. You need to think about that wealthy people, majority of wealthy people have most of their money invested in real estate. And you don't, this is the business thinking. You should never invest with your own money. Why would you do that? You should invest with the bank's money. That's the idea. So you can get those returns. I think that's my takeaway, but I'm going to ask you your takeaway out of all of this. I think this was a really, really very informative, and I think it's really good information for people to know. So I'll ask you to, what key takeaways and you think we got out of all of this information?
Well, I saw a stat, and I'm not going to claim to but I've seen kind of this same stat from multiple places, but I've heard something where 90% of millionaires are millionaires because of real estate, not millionaires because of any other reason, because real estate appreciates over time. And so I heard the number, 90% of people are millionaires because they invest in real estate, not because of any other reason. And then when you talked about, basically you're talking about leverage. When you buy property with as little money out of your pocket, so if you could buy a $100,000 property with only spending $10,000 of your own money, and it's appreciating at $3,000 a year, okay? So that's 3% of 100,000 is 3%. 3% of 100,000 is $3,000, okay? If you only put $10,000 down, then you made $3,000 on a $10,000 investment. That's 30% return. And you're going to make $3,000 the next year. And that's only on the appreciation. Mm-hmm. That has nothing to do with you're paying down the principal. There's multiple streams of income.
It is insane how much you can get for retirement. I wanted, people to understand this is passive income. It could be active, of course, it could. But the most important thing is to have that passive income.
What people should be afraid of is taking out $100,000 loan to buy an automobile.
Yeah, that will be very important.
Right. You're going to take out $10,000. I'm sorry. You're going to take out a $100,000 loan to buy an automobile. You're going to pay over $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And in 10 years, you're going to see that same automobile where somebody working at McDonald's is going to be driving that, because in 10 years, it's going to be something that somebody working at McDonald's is going to be able to afford. They go down in value. Automobile, unless you buy some sort of museum classic car, which
is, it's a classic, and definitely will be worth. But
and any car I drive is worth less after I put 10 years on. I'll tell you that.
Once you take it out of the dealer, believe me, it just it lost value. But
right. So if you're not afraid to do that, you damn sure shouldn't be afraid to put that money to work on something that's going to increase in value.
To buy a property. And the thing is that it's important to find the right people, the right advisor, a good lender that guides you through the whole process. There are tons of lenders. It's true. There are tons of realtors out there, but it's good that you have that person that you feel comfortable with and the person that gives you the best advice, possible to get those returns that you want. So if they want to find you, Dave, where can they find you? Let me do it.
Well, you can find me on TikTok, Facebook. You can Google me. But anyway, I'm the arrow there. You can find it right there.
Yep. Well,
hold on. You got a mistake. We got to fix this.
We got to fix this.
Yeah, it's 330, not 615.
Oh, sorry. Wait a minute.
But
330. I'm gonna do that right now. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so what's your number? It's 15. Well, anyway,
no, it's 330-415-9538.
Okay, 330. Hold on, 330.
415.
Okay, 415 9538. Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna have it out there. Hold on.
And I'm going to give Zhara a plug while you're doing that. When you talk about finding a realtor that's going to look out for your investment, going to give you great advice, Zhara, when she has clients that need home equity lines of credit or some kind of unique financing, she comes to me. And if I even hint at there may be an issue, she's already thinking of plan B, plan C. Zhara is, she's calling me like, holy cow, Zhara, it's 11 o'clock at night. Mortgage engineer's trying to go to bed. No, I need you to find a way to help my clients. So yeah, she's always out there looking out for people's best interests. She's very motivated.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
But that's the truth. That's the truth.
No, I definitely, if you want to, so for whoever is now going to watch the video, who's not watching, and then just going to, listen to the podcast, so you can contact David Dennison, and his number is 330-415-9538, and your email is DD, so that's ddenisson, double N, right? ddenisson @loandepot.com. All right, Dave. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And hopefully, we can meet again soon in another episode.
All right. Let's get this done, people.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being here. And if you're not watching now, this will be recorded. So thank you for being part of it. This is Little White Experiences. I'm your host, Zhara Fernandez. I'm a real estate investment consultant. Works with Keller Williams, and I'll give you my number. So if you have any questions whatsoever about real estate, my number is 646-667-6881, and my email is zharanashvillerealtor@gmail.com. And of course, you can contact Dave if you have any questions about any types of loans, if you're thinking about investing in property, and anything that you want to figure it out, any questions that you have related to real estate loans, definitely you should contact him. And I'm here for you. If you have any questions as well, you can definitely email me. You can call me. If I don't answer, you can definitely text me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you, and have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.